The grate stays sealed until your infrastructure fee clears. I do not care how much it rains.
You are about to flood 2 houses to prove a point that is not even yours to make.
Water was already climbing past my ankles. Karen Pruitt stood beside 2 contractors bolting a steel plate over the drainage culvert on my property line, rain hammering the desert clay and mud around us, while she shouted over the storm that the grate stays sealed until my infrastructure fee clears. I planted my boot against the plate before the last bolt went in. Evidence over emotion, I told myself. Phone already recording because in about 90 seconds, the water rising behind that culvert was going to prove something Karen never bothered to check. That part comes later. Let me start from the beginning. For months earlier, back when Karen Pruitt was still just a name printed at the bottom of an invoice I did not recognize. If you have ever paid a fee nobody could actually explain to you, stay with this one. My name is Owen Bristow. I am 45 years old, and I own a home bordering Whispering Palms, a gated golf community outside Scottsdale, Arizona, on a parcel my property predates by 6 years. I work as a civil engineer specializing in stormwater systems, which means drainage grates and easement lines are not abstract legal concepts to me. They are Tuesday. A professor of mine once told me that most disputes are not won by whoever argues loudest, but by whoever bothers to read the actual document everyone else assumed they already understood. I have carried that with me longer than I have carried most advice. I did not go looking for a fight with Whispering Palms. The fight arrived by certified mail. Karen Pruitt worked as the on-site representative for Sterling Management Group, the company Whispering Palms contracted to run daily operations, and she moved through the community the way people do when they believe every square foot answers to them regardless of what a deed actually says. The first invoice arrived addressed to me directly, a $240 monthly community infrastructure fee, retroactive 4 months, tied to what the letter called shared stormwater management benefiting adjacent parcels. I had never signed anything establishing that arrangement, and my property, again, existed before Whispering Palms broke ground on a single home. I called the management office the same afternoon. Karen answered herself, told me the fee applied to any parcel using the community's drainage system, and informed me that until it was paid in full, access modifications could be made to ensure, in her words, appropriate cost allocation. I did not know yet what that phrase actually meant. I filed a formal public records request with the county the following week, requesting the original recorded easement documents governing the drainage culvert running along our shared property line, along with any agreement establishing Whispering Palms' authority over it. The county clerk warned me processing could take several weeks given their backlog, so I settled in to wait, checking the portal most evenings after work out of habit more than expectation. Karen, meanwhile, sent a second letter, warning that continued non-payment would result in what she called necessary infrastructure adjustments to the shared drainage corridor. I read that line 3 times before it clicked, a warning dressed up as a policy update. When the county records finally came through 5 weeks later, they showed something Karen's own paperwork never mentioned. The culvert sat entirely within my recorded property boundary, a boundary confirmed by a 2003 survey correction after the original developer's plat had misplaced the line by nearly 11 feet during initial platting. Whispering Palms had no recorded easement over it at all, only decades of assumption inherited from a plat map nobody had corrected in their own files. Evidence over emotion, I reminded myself, printing 3 copies before I called anyone. My cousin Denise, who has lived in Whispering Palms for 11 years and still plays cards with half the board on Thursdays, called me 2 nights after the county records arrived, her voice careful in a way that told me she had already heard something. She said Karen had been telling residents at the clubhouse that an outside property owner was trying to steal community drainage rights to avoid paying his fair share, framing me as the aggressor before I had said a public word to anyone. Denise did not believe it, she told me, mostly because she had seen my property's original survey stakes herself years earlier during a fence dispute of her own. But she wanted me to know the story was already moving through the community, gaining detail with each retelling, the way stories do when nobody checks the source. I thanked her, and did not respond publicly to any of it, since I still had 5 weeks of silence and a stack of county documents that spoke more clearly than I ever could in a clubhouse conversation. 3 days into monsoon season, with rain forecast to worsen through the evening, I came home to find Karen Pruitt supervising two contractors bolting a steel plate directly over the drainage culvert, blocking it entirely, the same culvert my own recorded survey placed squarely on my land. She told me, raising her voice over the wind, that the modification was necessary until my account was brought current, and that the community bore no responsibility for runoff affecting a non-paying parcel. I did not argue with her directly. Instead, I called a reporter I had spoken with once before for an unrelated municipal infrastructure story, a woman named Priya Anand who covered local government for the regional paper and described exactly what was happening in real time: the storm, the sealed culvert, the flooding risk to two properties downstream of mine. Priya said she could have a photographer there within the hour, since a gated community physically blocking stormwater drainage during an active monsoon warning was, in her words, exactly the kind of story her editor would want same day. Karen did not know a call had been made. She kept directing the contractors as the water climbed. Priya's article ran online before the storm even cleared, complete with photographs of the sealed culvert and my property's boundary survey overlaid for reference. And by the following week, the County Water Management Department had scheduled an emergency virtual hearing to address stormwater liability along the affected properties. I joined the video call from my kitchen table. Karen appeared from the Sterling Management Office, and a county engineer walked through the recorded survey correction from 2003 point by point, confirming on the record that the culvert sat entirely within my property and that no easement existed granting Whispering Palms or its management company any authority to alter, block, or restrict it under any circumstance. Karen argued that the community's operating agreement implied broader drainage authority regardless of exact boundary lines. The county engineer replied simply that implied authority did not exist in water law. Only recorded authority did, and none was recorded here. Evidence over emotion. And by the end of that call, the county had issued a formal order requiring the plate's immediate removal and holding Sterling Management liable for any downstream flooding damage caused during the blockage. The steel plate came off within 2 days, and the two downstream homeowners whose yards had flooded during the blockage filed damage claims directly against Sterling Management rather than the community itself, since the county's order had specifically named the company as liable. Whispering Palms Board, facing the article, the county order, and a management company that had just exposed them to real liability, voted to terminate its contract with Sterling Management entirely at the end of the fiscal quarter, a decision made in a private business meeting I only learned about secondhand from Denise. Karen was reassigned by Sterling to a different property 2 counties away within a month, a decision her own employer made without any input from Whispering Palms at all. The one retaliation incident worth documenting happened 6 days after the hearing, when I found a pile of yard debris and broken sprinkler pipe dumped directly onto my side of the property line overnight. No note, no explanation. I photographed it from multiple angles and filed it with the county alongside everything else, not as an accusation, simply as documentation. Nothing further happened after that. On HOA True Tales, we do not chase drama. We document it. What would you have done in my position and why?